My name is Jeff Kober. I'm an actor, a meditation teacher, and a wet plate collodion photographer, which is why I'm dressed like this. I started not with drugs, but with alcohol. I watched my parents and their friends enjoy alcohol. I watched these people who seemed miserable most of the time suddenly having fun. And I couldn't wait to do it myself. I actually lit my first cigarette when I was 4.5. So there was something going on with this kid right from the start. And more and more I've seen that alcoholism actually, I don't know if it's right to say that it's actually hereditary, but the propensity toward alcoholism definitely has some hereditary components. The first few times I drank, it really was heaven. It took me from where I was to a place of magic land. And the very first time I drank was actually as an altar boy in the Lutheran Church in Park City, Montana. I got drunk on the extra wine, and they came out onto the steps. I was in 8th grade, and I remember looking at all these old German people who really didn't express a lot of love toward me. But suddenly, I felt love toward them. And I literally felt as if I could see the molecules of air dancing in the sunlight. It really was a spiritual experience for me. And Carl Jung has said that alcoholism is actually a man or a woman looking to find a spiritual awakening, looking to find a spiritual connectedness that they feel inside is lacking. And it's not by accident that in Latin, the words for God and alcohol are the same, spirit. And, Jung says spiritus contra spiritum, which is something, like you take one because you don't have the other. Then I had a tragedy strike in my life when I was quite young, 15, 16 years old. I was in a fatal car accident, and no one ever spoke to me about it. I wasn't outside the law. I hadn't broken laws, but someone died, and I didn't see that I was able or really worthy of continuing to live, and I was just I was shut down and just in the way it felt to be me was awful. And then I started doing drugs, and I started drinking more and just trying not to feel the way it felt to be me. And truly, I was trying to die. I really wanted to die, and I couldn't. The life force in me was too strong. I tried to drive myself off the road. I tried to take too many of this or that, and I just couldn't really die. And I didn't really know what was going on. I just knew that I was not worthy of being alive and that I needed to do something to make it okay for me to continue breathing in and out because of the darkness of the feelings. And I went on a 10-year, 15-year lost weekend. I was in the carnival. I worked in a factory. I hitchhiked around the country several times. I was with there's a saying of finding lower companions so that your drinking doesn't look as bad as it actually is. You find someone who actually drinks worse than you do. I was able to find lots of those people, especially in the carnival. And at a certain point, I started coming back to the world and wanting to go to school and wanting to try to structure a life, even though I had no clue what that could be. And I did that, and I determined that if I got the job that was indicated that I was in the right place and doing the right things, then I would be fixed inside and everything would be okay and I would be able to stop doing what I was doing. And I got the job, and it was a movie. I was the third lead in a major motion picture, and I remember watching the inside of my head to watch it change into, celebration and okayness and peace, and nothing changed. Nothing changed at all. And not only had nothing changed, but the one thing that had given me hope to go forward had been proven to be a false hope. And so I was stuck with what I was, and I could no longer get drunk at that point. I could no longer get high, and at this point I was smoking crack and drinking every day, and hanging out with people who sold their bodies, and not because I was buying their bodies, but because that's who I related to. And I knew I was going to blow this job if I didn't sober up, so I got sober on my own. And I just checked into a motel and sweated and shook for 3 days, just before New Year's and just after Christmas. And after 3 days of this, I literally couldn't remember why I had done that. You clearly need a drink or a joint or something to take the edge off of this. And I don't know what you were thinking, but it was a bad idea. And for some reason, I went to the gym instead of having a drink, and I was going to have a drink after I went to the gym. And a woman noticed that I was having trouble getting on an exercise bicycle, and she asked me if I was okay, and I just said, "This is just the effect of no chemicals in my system. I'm sure it will pass." And she said, "I haven't had any chemicals in my system for 1.5 years. I go to these meetings, they seem to help." And I said, "It is so great that people like you have a place to go." And for some reason, I didn't have a drink that night, and the next day I called this woman, and she had me meet her at a 12-step meeting. And it was horrifying. There were people there all dressed up, and it was a Friday night, and it looked like they were just trying to get laid. But they were also people that looked like they could be alcoholics, could be drug addicts, and it was clear that they weren't drinking or using. And I heard something at that meeting that got me to go to another meeting the next day. And at that meeting, I saw a woman who was to become my hero, and this woman was about my age, and she clearly was a heroin addict, and she clearly wanted to use heroin, but also didn't want to use heroin, and she was taking a chip for 60 days. And that made sense to me. These other people who were claiming a year or 5 years or 10 years or 20 years of sobriety, it was like, either you're lying or you were never like me. This woman, she was enough like me that I believed what she was doing, and I could see the hauntedness in her eyes, and I could see the hope that it might go away. And so I just, I followed what she did and did what she did, and ended up, with 60 days myself, and then 90 days, and somehow hurt enough that I never took another drink, never took another drug. And what I found is that it really is about this spiritual component of life. We're here in these bodies and with these minds, and we're not really given any tools for how to do this. And I don't know if it's expected that we're supposed to know how to do it, but we expect ourselves to know how to do it. And then it's like we expect ourselves to know how to have a conversation. We expect ourselves to know how to learn to do a new job we've never done before. We expect ourselves to know how to have a relationship. And then we pretend, and we don't know at all. So we pretend we know what we're doing and sort of watch everyone else to figure out how to do it until we can start faking it on our own. And no one ever talks to us about what this all means. And there's something in us that needs to know, that wants to know, that there's something in me that believes in something greater than I'm a set of needs walking around getting them fulfilled. And it's a random universe, and I run into other people with needs, and either they're helping me get my needs filled or they're taking away from me getting my needs filled, so I either make them a part of my herd or try to kill them. That's, it's just that's an animalistic, mechanistic view of the universe, and that doesn't work for me. And what I have found is that the thing about 12-step programs is for the first time ever, I actually took a look at my life. I saw what was working and what wasn't working. I saw how I saw myself. I saw how I defined myself. I saw to the degree I liked or didn't like myself. And then I started learning how to take responsibility for who and what I am, and, you know, doing things appropriately, showing up for others, and when I didn't, or when I showed up in a fashion that was negative, you know, making up for that in some fashion. Like, this happened, I stole from you, I really wish I hadn't, and how can I make it up to you? Here's the money, you know, whatever it was. And then continuing to take stock of myself and the way I'm doing, and on a daily basis looking to connect to an idea of life that is greater than my small idea, greater than my small thoughts and feelings, greater than my individual needs, connecting to something greater than that, and asking for guidance from some greater consciousness than the one that I hold inside my own mind. And seeing that as really my reason for being on the planet, is to connect with that other thing that is other than my individuality, and then pointing myself outward to be of service, to give of myself rather than trying to get for myself. Because what I found is that when I take responsibility for who I am and how I'm doing and what I'm doing, and look to have my needs met by that inner connection to something greater than myself, I don't need anything from the world. But I still want to be in the world, and I still want to be with you, and I still want to be with others. But now I'm looking for what I can bring to each equation rather than what I need to get from each equation. And all the pressure is off. Suddenly, I'm an actual valuable member of society. I actually lend more to the equation than I take from it. And I'm not keeping score. And it turns out it's a recipe for a life really well lived. And in the beginning, there were times when a drink or a drug sounded like a really good idea because they'd been my tool for the longest time. But at a certain point, they stopped being a tool that worked for me and started being a tool that I was working for, because I had to do it just in order to be okay. And okay was a place that kept getting lower and lower. And, you know, the idea to drink or take drugs still sometimes sounds like a good idea, but whenever that happens for me, I play it through and go, okay, so let's say you have a beer. A beer, it's a hot day, have a beer. Well, you got to have 2 beers. And then, you know, the kind of pot that has come out and is legal now since I stopped getting high, which was many years ago, I got to try some of this pot. And there's some that's good for your mind and some that's good for your body. I got to do the mind stuff, you know, I got to try that. And, well, now, I've started drinking and I've started smoking pot, so I need something to keep me awake so I can do it more. Because this is just a 6-pack and a joint is not going to be enough. I want to go all night. So, and you know, and I play it through to 6 o'clock the next morning, and the place that I ended up with the young woman looking for rocks on my carpet in the next room, and me looking in the mirror and hearing the birds chirping outside and just thinking, wow. You can't go anywhere by yourself, can you? You just, you know, I play it through to, that's where I would end up again. And I would be trading everything that's in my life today. And in my life today, I honestly can say that if I died in the next moment, it wouldn't bother me, because I've had experiences that have been so valuable to me, and I have seen the face of God in my fellows, and I have experienced a oneness with this universe that I think is the only reason we're here. I've already done that. So thanks for asking.